Welcome to Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda. My name's Nick Park. I'm taking us through a series of the great prayers of the Old Testament. And we're looking through the Old Testament and seeing how God was instructing his people little bit by bit. Every book we see a more progression in this whole subject of prayer and how people approach God in prayer. And our prayer is that you will progress in your prayer life as well through these studies together. Now, we've been talking about Samuel, and there's a prayer here which includes a prayer that was not great, but then Samuel met with the Lord and the Lord spoke to him. So I guess you could say that prayer was great. And the context was this, that Samuel had led the people. The people had been led by judges during the period of the judges from Joshua up until 1 Samuel. Samuel has now become a prophet to lead the people. He's very much the authoritative figure in the nation. But Samuel's sons were not the person that he was. You know, very often there's a leader wants their son to take their place or their sons to take their place. Eli's sons, the high priest's sons, were unworthy to follow in their father's footsteps. And to be honest, Samuel's sons were unworthy to follow in his footsteps, and the people could see this. And so they decided that they wanted a king. Because the other nations around them had kings, they wanted a king as well. And Samuel really spoke to them very, very clearly about that. And Samuel said, look, you don't want a king. You know, kings, it's not going to work out for you. It's going to be a bit of a disaster for you. Your kings will oppress you. They'll mistreat you, and you shouldn't want to be like the other nations. You're called to be different and to have God as your king. But it says the people refused to listen to Samuel. No, they said, we want a king over us. Then we will be like all other nations, with a king to lead us and to go out before us and fight our battles. Well, they got that wrong, because a king doesn't fight your battles. The king gets you to fight his battles. That's what a king does. And when Samuel heard all that the people said, he repeated it before the Lord. And the Lord answered, listen to them and give them a king. You see, the Lord answered Samuel's prayer, but to be honest, telling them, okay, you have a king. God was giving the people what they wanted, even though they should have wanted something better. And there's a real principle here that we need to be careful what we pray for, because there is a power in prayer. And sometimes we pray for things that we shouldn't be praying for. And we need to be very careful, because sometimes God answers our prayers even when we should have been praying for something better. You know, I love the fact that Jesus, when he met a blind man, said to him, what do you want me to do for you? And I'm thinking, well, isn't that obvious? He's blind, you're Jesus. Of course, he wants you to heal him. But maybe the guy might have said, I wanted a guide dog. And I believe if the blind man had said, I want a guide dog, Jesus would have given him a guide dog. You know, he'll answer your prayer. Whenever Jesus healed a demoniac in the region of the Gadarenes, the people of that country came and they saw that how the demons had entered into the pigs and the pigs had jumped into the water. They didn't like that. They asked Jesus to leave that place. Jesus answered their prayer. They could have had Jesus there with them. They could have had healing. They could have had blessing, but he left because they told him to. Ultimately, people go to hell because God answers their prayer. They say, we don't want God in our life. God says, okay. We need to seek God's will before we seek his power or his provision. Because if we don't seek God's will, we end up praying for the wrong things, and we might just end up getting what we pray for. There's a reason why we're taught to pray in the Lord's Prayer, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Then give us this day our daily bread. We need to pray for God's will to be done before we start asking God for what we want. So that if what we want is not God's will, then God can encourage us and teach us to pray for something better. And on this occasion, the people refused to listen to Samuel. They said, we want a king. That's what they prayed for, and that's what they got. May God help us to seek his face and seek his will before we ask him for for anything. May God bless you today. Join us again tomorrow for another Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda.